right, so we haven't done this for a while. We were just talking. I think the last time we did one of these Zoom videos was Eternals.
Correct.
So yeah, and you wanted to do this for this because you've been super psyched for quite some time to see the return of Michael Keaton's Batman, and that was pretty much what both of our draw was to this, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look behind me and you see anything behind me, clearly I'm a fan of Michael Keaton as Batman.
Yes.
And on this channel, you've heard me mention several times, he's the best one. Still think he's the best one.
And if I remember correctly, on the wall to your like far left is the poster.
Yes, I have it up with Man of Steel. And don't come at me. I love Henry Cavill as Superman too.
I think we're at a place now where a lot of people would agree with you, and a lot of people are pissed off about his absence in this sort of pre-James Gunn wrapping up, if you want to call it wrapping up, whatever they're doing here.
Yeah, I don't know what Henry Cavill did or who he did it to, but Warner Brothers has done him really dirty. And I kind of feel like the same people that are dealing with Henry Cavill are the same people that strung along Robin Williams.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they hate Henry Cavill so much. Not only are they sort of putting these movies in front of them and then taking him away, but the one movie he did finally get a cameo in was a movie as bad as Black Adam. So it's just a
Do
full
you
on
feel like
grudge. It feels like.
do you feel like they heard people complain about these movies and they were like, "Oh, it's Henry Cavill's fault," and that's who they threw all the blame at?
It seems to be a thing where the blame from like the higher ups, the blame always goes in the wrong place, whatever it may be.
It does, and I'll be the first one to say you can't blame Affleck because I've told everybody that knows I was excited for this movie because for me it's the number one and number three Batman of all time.
Yeah,
Not
and
counting Kevin Conroy. I never count Kevin Conroy because I feel like he's in a class by himself.
yeah, obviously I'm on the same train as you with Keaton being my personal favorite also.
Yeah.
Um, and we had that Nolan versus Burton video back in the day. And I had talked about Batman Begins being my favorite when you look at Nolan's movies and Burton's movies together.
Mm-hmm.
But as time has gone on, and we've talked about this also on this channel, and this is going on your channel too, isn't it?
Yeah, if you don't mind sending it to me.
Yeah. That I think over time the '89 Batman is. I think even at the time when we did that video in 2015, in my heart, the '89 Batman was my favorite Batman movie. But I had said Begins at the time, but we've just kind of always been we love the Nolan trilogy, but it's Keaton's kind of always been our guy.
I mean, look at him. He just looks the part.
So, talking about the fact that Keaton's Batman was our main draw into this is probably a good segue for a disclaimer about this movie and how we're approaching it. Um, so the whole Ezra Miller thing. First of all, it is okay. There's one thing I've got to say, and it's not like it's a positive thing. It's just something that was on my mind. You talk about, movies getting changed or, people getting cut out of movies if they become problematic in real life, especially to the extent that Ezra Miller has become that in real life. It's it's fucking insane. Taking away everything else, it's pretty fucking insane to look at what Ezra Miller has done in the past couple of years and then to go see a movie in the theater he is the star of that's supposedly a big blockbuster movie. It's surreal.
Not
That
only that, but two of them.
yeah. um and I that's yeah, that's sort of what we're working around here as far as talking about this movie because obviously in another case I'd probably just sort of say yeah, it is what it is. Let's talk about the movie. But I mean, this is a pretty extreme case of the person's done fucked up shit. recently. And I think it's the no consequences thing also that's getting people really angry about this. So we just need to acknowledge that, I feel like, before we go into the movie is what I'm saying. So anything else on that, or are we?
No, I think we've touched on it all I care to touch on it.
It's not a laughing matter, by the way. This is nervous laughter. So let's so going into the movie, um do you want to start somewhere? There's so much in this movie. Good God, there's so much in this movie.
There's a lot to unpack,
Yeah.
and I am not for overinflating time, but I think you could have given the movie 15 more minutes and been able to better explain some of the things that happen. And I know, and I feel like this movie is going to draw a lot of comparisons to No Way Home.
Yeah. Where it's like, if it's what would have happened if No Way Home wasn't as thought out as it was.
Yeah.
And it's because, to my understanding, not only does this one maybe feel rushed in comparison to No Way Home, but there was also, between when it's shot and now, given all the things that have happened, not just with Ezra Miller, but with the James Gunn transition,
Mm-hmm.
so much of this movie, post being shot, had to be changed,
Mm-hmm.
which is also just throwing everything around. And it's like the Community meme of Donald Glover walking into the room with pizza and the room's on fire
Mm-hmm.
is what it is what it feels like. But yeah. So what I was saying was we were talking about how there's so much stuff in here, some stuff needed room to breathe. And you were saying we needed extra time for those things. Is there anything that's in the movie now that you would have cut out to make more room for that stuff that needs to breathe?
Honestly, looking at it right now, no.
Yeah, because when I think of that, I think of like mostly dialogue that could have been cut, not necessarily scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I hate to, I know we're in DC now, and I hate to, we've already said No Way Home. I hate to keep making Marvel comparisons, but there's a lot of stuff, especially when you get to like Infinity War and Endgame, when the movies are getting really long for Marvel, and there's so
Mm-hmm.
much dialogue you could cut out, and it's like the jokey dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that our first clue that Barry's not in the right universe is that Eric Stoltz plays Marty McFly.
Yeah.
When we hear that, it's like, oh, this is not our world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that like they drove that home quite a bit. It's almost like they made the reference, and it's like that's. I remember thinking like that's a really clever way to do that, to
Mm-hmm.
reveal that, because I feel like it's a pretty well-known fact at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I imagine a lot of people coming to the theater that would be fans of movies like this, you can, I mean, I know you can't like just assume, but there's a high chance most of the people who see this movie will have seen Back to the Future. And because we're in the age of you can look up anything about a movie, most people that have seen Back to the Future seem to know that Eric Stoltz was going to be Marty at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you could have left it at that enough, but the movies seem to panic and think, what if not everybody gets the reference? Well, number one, it becomes clear very quickly anyway that he's in the wrong world. But they really played. They went through this whole gauntlet of IMDb trivia with the Footloose thing and whatever other example they used, like Top Gun.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like a lot when the one Eric Stoltz reference kind of made the point. But there's a whole scene devoted to them talking about actors being in parts that they would have gotten in another timeline. That could have been cut down. I don't know how much time that was, but
I think at
it
the
feels
end
like
of
a
the
lot.
day, as fast as the dialogue moves, you might have saved 10 seconds.
Yeah. But you could have used that 10 seconds for more useful dialogue, probably. Because you can get a lot across in one line, as we were just saying with the Eric Stoltz thing.
And
Uh,
it kind of helps too that Ezra Miller talks kind of fast.
yeah. And that's okay. I want to bring that up too, and I'm hoping that it's not controversial. And I'll be curious on your thoughts on this also. Um, there's a kind of a problem when somebody is, to put it nicely, we'll say controversial, I guess. To put it simply, we'll call it controversial.
Mm-hmm.
People will automatically jump to that person also has no talent.
Mm-hmm.
Like after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, suddenly everybody was talking about how Will Smith wasn't a very good actor anyway, which is objectively false. I've seen a lot of people saying that now that Ezra Miller has no talent. Ezra Miller is a terrible actor. I do not think that's true. You can literally say anything about Ezra Miller. You can say they're a psychopath. They need help. They should be in prison. You can say all that. I cannot say they're a bad actor.
Yeah.
Not even close. Anybody who's seen Perks of Being a Wallflower, I feel like would never say that.
And honestly, in this movie, he has some really good scenes. Like when he comes to grips with the fact of what he has to do.
Yeah, and I'm just in general a sucker for somebody being able to play two parts and seem like two different people, despite looking
Yeah,
exactly
he does
like
that really
themselves.
well in this.
Yeah. When you see current Barry and 18-year-old Barry, they're clearly two different characters, and that takes acting skill to pull
Yeah.
off. You know, like you were saying, there's a lot of emotional beats in this also. Like I like the idea of him realizing he has to go back in time and he can save his mom, and he starts with the first thing he tries is the simplest thing. Oh, I'll just remind her to get tomatoes. The end.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where we go. And when he sees his mom for the first time again, and just the way he plays it, it all sets in that this is the first time he's seen his mom since his childhood because she's dead.
Yeah.
And how emotionally he plays that scene both times, the beginning and the end.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, say what you will about what he did personally, but Ezra Miller brought, I feel like acting wise, he brought his A game.
Yeah. And you can get the sense
Barry's,
that,
Barry's got to go through a lot of conflicting emotions.
yeah, on top of playing two different versions of himself.
Yeah. Each going through their own thing.
Yeah. It's like something like this is probably an actor's dream to get something this meaty to work with.
I mean, at one point in the movie, he is playing desperate to fix everything, and at the same time, has to play. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's the kind of thing I'm a sucker for. So anybody that can do that believably, I'm sold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, now that we're talking about there being two berries, should we go ahead and talk about one of the bigger talking points, which is the
Which is,
CGI?
yeah, the CGI is pretty rough.
What I want to point out before we go into the specifics of that is it's very interesting to me how the CGI is as bad as it is, but the effect of there being two berries always on screen together is flawless.
Yeah.
What what happened? It's like I can it's basically even when he carries him through the wall, it looks pretty seamless that there's two different people there that are the same
Yeah.
person.
Mm-hmm.
Why are the rest of the effects so shit?
Yeah. It's
Because
like that's where they focused all their efforts.
yeah, because it's through pretty much the whole movie once they meet.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't even try to like use much trickery or kind of going around it. They just went all in on just we'll just have them in the same frame all the time.
Yeah.
So
And most of the time you see both faces.
yeah, I would say it's just as seamless as Army Hammer and the Social Network, which is also extremely is flawless.
Yeah. And that was 13 years ago, flawless.
Yeah. Well, that's Fincher for you. So, um, but you were talking about like the action scene. Like obviously one of the many times the CGI is going to be bad is the baby scene. But you were telling me you still love that scene.
I still think it's really neat. I mean, yes, it doesn't look great, but I love the concept. And I feel like with what how Barry functions and how he has to go about doing things, I mean, I'll give credit where it's due. That's probably a really hard effect to make look genuine because everything is warped and slowed down and has to move in unconventional ways. It probably is a very difficult thing to pull off, but so is Spider-Man swinging, but it seems to look okay.
Yeah, I guess the thing to point out obviously is that the artists behind this are probably super talented,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the result of like being rushed and maybe trying to cut back on budget or something.
Which is funny that it would feel rushed because I feel like this movie took forever to get out. I feel like the first teaser was released like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's like when you hear about how the Avatar movies look so good because Cameron has so much time to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when this came after all the time, when this came out, I think that's another reason the CGI is probably getting so much shit is they had time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny to say this given the concept of the movie. They had plenty of time to
Mm-hmm.
work with. Um, but yeah, I think that what makes it really bad is, and this is just now occurring to me, seeing really poorly CGI'd babies. It felt like effects from Son of the Mask. That's what it felt
Oh man, I had
like.
that thought too because some of those babies had like nightmare fuel faces. Now sometimes it was funny, like the crying kid in the supermarket cracked me up. I don't know why.
So on the other place where there's a lot of CGI would be, what is the name for that place? Did we get one? Because I'm not familiar with like Flash lore at all outside of these
The
movies.
chronosphere.
Is that what it is where we see like all the so the question there is that's so CGI heavy and just given everything that it is, it kind of seems inevitable that scene would look animated anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like like when we see like, you know, the animated Cavill or the animated Momoa and all this other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
the animated Cage, would if the effects were what they probably were supposed to be or what they were intended to be, would those have looked more lifelike, or would that general area and those scenes always look kind of animated and off?
I mean, I just think of Peter Cushing in Star Wars.
You see, I think it's weird that it's an unpopular opinion for me to say I think Peter Cushing looks really good in Rogue One,
Mm-hmm.
but apparently that's not a popular opinion. um, but yeah, I don't. It's like I said, it all comes back to it's weird to me how much time they had
Mm-hmm.
and how off everything looks. But also, I just talked about this with the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, where the Dungeons and Dragons movie has great effects, but there's like one scene that looks kind of green screeny. But my thought what I said was, if like fun and adventure wins out, it's not going to always matter the quality of the effects
Mm-hmm.
as long as like the power of the scene comes through. that's why I feel like the emotional scenes in this movie kind of work, because when he's just kind of in that area and we're seeing all this stuff, it's like, God, this looks like shit. But when he's coming to the conclusion that he can't, even if he turns back time over and over and over again, it's going to be the same result and there's nothing he can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of stopped worrying. That worked enough for me that I stopped worrying about the CGI in that scene. Like the CGI
Yeah,
didn't
it's
ruin
something
that
happened
scene.
to me because when I realized the conflict he was going to go through, I became much more interested in how he was going to approach that than what the
Yeah.
surroundings looked like.
Yeah, so you can still beat bad effects.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess how people, to me anyway, I would think how people feel about the scene would be how people feel about the effects to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So was there anything else you had on the CGI?
I mean, there are things that look weird. Like Christopher Reeve does look weird, but at the same time, the fact that it is supposed to be him for me is enough that that got a response out of
Yeah.
it.
And
Nicholas, going back to Nicholas Cage, um, I understand why they did the CGI, but honestly, I think if they would have asked Nick Cage, he would have done it.
yeah, because he did. It would be interesting to see him getting
Because that
like,
dude seems down for anything.
yeah, like how he was just Spider-Man Noir in Into the Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
That was his name, wasn't
I think so.
it? But yeah, and it would have kind of been like this whole cathartic thing where it's like where we have Keaton coming back. It's like, yeah, it would have been cathartic for everybody. It would have been cathartic for Cage, and it would have been cathartic for John Peters to find
Yeah,
his dream finally came true.
yeah,
Just briefly.
yeah.
And
I do love the fact that they made that outside the box reference. Like, yes, there's a lot of comparisons to No Way Home, but No Way Home never referenced a dead project that all we had to go on was a single picture.
yeah, and would you say the giant spider? Because John Peters' idea probably would not be known to the public if it weren't for the Kevin Smith story.
Probably not.
I would think so. It is kind of nice also to see like Kevin Smith. Oh, it says we have 10 minutes.
Yeah, I noticed that too. We might have to do this in a couple parts and string them together.
We can do that. So so Kevin Smith gets this in the DC world, and in the Marvel world, he got Stan Lee reading the Mallrats script in Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like his Kevin Smith loves for comics kind of keeps coming back to.
That's like I saw on Instagram where he went to the premiere, and it made me wonder: did he know about it? Did he know that they paid homage to that?
Yeah, because to my understanding, the way he found out about the Captain Marvel thing was Feige screened the whole movie for him and said,
Mm,
I think there's something in here you're gonna like."
yeah,
So I would like to think he saw it in context.
yeah.
I also something else I forgot to mention was I also like the I mean, it kind of seems obvious in retrospect, but I do like the opening logos where it was all the Warner Brothers logos,
Yeah,
past
that
and
was pretty
present.
cool. And the
And
DC.
when he's starting to take off at the beginning and the title is starting to come up and then he gets cut off and the title stops.
Yeah, like you can definitely tell it's a movie. You can tell it's a movie that's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Like it felt very similar in tone to Shazam.
Yeah, I can see that. The first Shazam, the good one.
Mm-hmm,
Because I've rewatched Shazam recently and it's still really good, the first one.
mm-hmm.
All right, so this will be our Batman section.
Yeah,
Do we start with Affleck or Keaton?
we'll start with Affleck because he's barely in it,
Yeah.
which is a shame.
Yeah, so I told you I was listening to the Smartless podcast that Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes have, and they were talking to Affleck, and he was talking about at the end of it that he felt like when he did this movie, these scenes in this movie, he felt like he had finally cracked his Bruce Wayne and Batman. Like for the other movies, he wasn't sure and he wasn't feeling good about it. But then when he did this movie, he said he felt like he finally had it. Now that it was like ending.
Mhm.
So how do you feel about it, having been such a champion for him for so long?
He still holds up, man. I still really enjoy. I still wish he'd get a solo movie. I know it won't happen now, but I wish it would have at some point.
Yeah, the one he was going to direct, where Jim Manganiello as Deathstroke would have been the villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the emotional connection that he has with Barry in
Mhm.
these openings after his action. He has his action scene first.
And it's awesome.
Yeah, it is interesting. I always love when they kind of change it up, but I'm still not quite sure how I feel about having so much Batman during the day,
Hmm.
which is what pretty much every Batman action scene in this movie is.
Yeah, even Keaton's during the day.
Yeah, that was really hard to get used to. Not only that, but seeing Keaton outside of Gotham was on. I feel like I should appreciate the freshness of, oh, I've never seen this before, but I found it really hard to get used to. I don't know. Am I too much of a Keaton purist? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe because I understand why it was outside the box because the timeline was screwed up.
Yeah.
Like Zod clearly isn't supposed to be in his timeline.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about this before we started, but the idea, well, first off, I looked it up afterwards and I had learned that the Clooney joke wasn't the original ending,
Mhm.
where apparently Keaton and Supergirl were supposed to be at the courthouse at the end to show how much him saving his dad had changed the timeline.
Mhm.
Um, but it felt like the scene where he basically asks Bruce if he wants to like go out for a drink or something, and Bruce says like maybe another time.
Mhm.
It kind of feels like we were leading up to a payoff for that, and that would have been what the last scene was when he called up Bruce again at the end. How would you have felt? How do you feel about us not really getting a another scene between Barry and Affleck's Batman, and the fact that it's the Clooney joke instead of those other things?
Well, I thought Clooney was a swerve. I thought he was going to be somebody that's just like one of Bruce Wayne's
I would have taken that
people. Hmm.
because he didn't. I mean, I know Keaton didn't really either, but Clooney didn't look like his Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
He looked like Clooney. He looked
Yeah,
like they pulled him off of a red carpet for Ticket to Paradise, and he shot this cameo.
yeah.
But I mean, I think the Clooney joke is funny. I do, but like you, I like that.
I think what sells it is his reaction to it.
Yeah, but I think you're onto something with it. Would have been great to have the Clooney joke and then kind of another scene.
Hmm.
But I guess does that take us to Keaton?
Yeah.
Okay, I've told I've
What do, you, what do you think of the lasso of truth scene?
I don't know. I think the one thing that comes to mind is that we've done that. We did it in was it Justice League? I think we had a scene like that. It was Whedon's Justice League. We had a scene like that.
Yeah.
Um, which I guess we're all trying to erase from our memories now that the Snyder Cut does exist. But um, no, I kind of wanted to go down that path too, real quick. About the Snyder Cut not being canon, apparently. Like, not that canon matters now since we're doing the James Gunn thing.
Hmm.
But at first, I kind of thought they were bringing in Snyder Cut canon from when Kiersey Clemens says, "Wait, haven't we met before?" Because
Hmm.
there was the scene in the Snyder Cut where he saves her, and that's
Yeah.
like their intro. But then they brought up the "Oh, we went to school together" thing or whatever it was. I was like, oh, for a second, I thought the Snyder Cut came in, but I guess not.
I would have welcomed it.
Yeah. It is surprising to me that they didn't embrace that more. And it's not that they didn't embrace it. They've completely cut it off, and we're doing the gun thing. Like,
Which is crazy because maybe it's just my thinking, but isn't the Snyder cut the preferred one?
I have never heard anybody say they prefer the Whedon version, and I don't expect to ever hear anybody say that.
Because I think a lot of that too is people feel like the Snyder cut single-handedly justified the decision to hire Jared Leto to be the Joker.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess we should get into the Keaton thing before our we have to start over again. Um, so yeah, you can go ahead and go into your thoughts on everything Keaton in this movie.
He doesn't drive the car. How do you put the car in the teaser and in the previews and build up to its reveal, and then he doesn't drive?
Yeah, the most airtime it gets is Barry sleeping in it, isn't it?
That's the best Batmobile they've ever had, and he doesn't fucking drive it. That bothers me. I
Yeah.
know that sounds small, but look at the shelf. How many Keaton Batmobiles are back there? At least 3 or 4. It's the best one. I will not hear any other arguments. I will not hear your Tumblr arguments. I will not hear Affleck's smash down car arguments. It's Keaton's Batmobile is the best one.
Because I mean we're saying that there should have been a scene where he drove the car. I guess with the way the events play out, it would have had to have been squeezed in, I guess.
Mhm.
So I guess the argument now comes in of bringing in Keaton's Batman and that being something that we all want to see, and it may be the main drawing. Even like I said, even before pre Ezra Miller trouble, we all would have like want to have seen. We would have come here to see that. But then there's always the argument at the end of the day that it is a Flash movie.
Mhm.
So
Honestly, you know where I would put the Batmobile? In the scene where he loses his where he ejects out of the plane and he like swoops down onto the battlefield. I know it's completely impractical, but we're in a fantasy land, so we could do this. I would have had a little ramp open up and the Batmobile pop out of it, and he would have drove it through the desert like Affleck drove it when they were dealing with the parademons.
that would have been wild.
Yeah, that'd have been cool, huh?
Yeah, because I
And
mean,
I would have had it pull the Batman Returns where he tried to light Zod on fire and it doesn't work. I would have done that.
that would have been cool. To bring that back would have been cool because that's another thing we've talked about before is the idea of fan service
Mm-hmm.
and how typically I'll be one of the first people to say I don't care for fan service, but I'm also a hypocrite.
Which
If
is so funny because when I told Susan that the movie was very fan servicey, her first thought was, "Uh oh, AJ didn't like it, did he?"
well, this is where I would have been like I felt a little potential, maybe some almost tear thing happening when he said I'm Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I've said before, I didn't care for the way he did that. Oh man, I guess I gotta say it thing, because you know Keaton has been ready to say those words his entire life,
He
and I
still
would
says,
yeah, and it would have been
and the
great if we
funny thing
got it.
is he's 100% correct.
Yeah, and it would have been great if we got a 100% stone faced one. But another thing I say to you is, as somebody that typically says I really don't care for fan service, it's lazy, it's easy. If he had driven the car and Elfman's theme kicked in, that would have been everything.
Yeah, that would have justified the entire decision.
The times we do get Elfman's music is still everything, but
Like I was telling you, it clashes with the score, but I love that Elfman's theme takes over whenever he flies in with the Batplane.
yeah. And I said before, I do think Let's Get Nuts is kind of a forced inclusion. I feel like there were other callback lines because Let's Get Nuts in the original movie isn't really Bruce speaking organically. He's not like Bruce in that scene. He's like trying to psych Jack out, basically.
Yeah.
So there
See,
were
I
other.
see my callbacks that I would have done. The Joker bag, absolutely keep that. That was great. I don't even mind that Barry's like, "Hey, this bag laughs." That was pretty funny. But maybe like have a scene of him like by himself, like changing out of the suit, and he just reaches down and he fiddles with the scar where Selena stabbed him. I would like those kind of callbacks.
Yeah. Yeah, the stuff that I know you said just now, you just said you like Barry's line about the bag, but yeah, any callback that doesn't like draw attention to itself and put like a whole spotlight on itself, I'm okay
Mhm.
with, usually.
Now I understand, based on what I've seen in interviews and stuff, this was just Keaton having a fun go around one more time in the suit, and I'm fine with that. I'm not anti-fun. I'm not a Keaton purist. It doesn't have to be 100% serious. We can have fun with it, but I think there's better callbacks that could have been made. And plus, you could have used the Selena thing as a character building moment to show his isolation, how he's cut everyone out.
Yeah. So,
Or even like Barry and well, Barry too, we'll call him, are walking through Wayne Manor and there's a newspaper strewn out on the floor and it's an article by Knox. Like something like that would have been fun.
yeah.
Or they find the Batman Cracks Code newspaper.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like the options are endless that would have been good options.
Yeah. Or even like have that scene where Keaton's by himself in my scene that I've created, where he's by himself fiddling with that scar, have like voiceover from Alfred or something. Like
Yeah.
you could even cheat and use it from Batman Forever, where Alfred says like when he talks about how Dick needs guidance.
Yeah.
That would have played here. I mean, it would have been cheating because wouldn't have been a Keaton movie, but Michael Goff's in both. I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, because the only real callback to Alfred is when he says like I know you had an Alfred too, and I kind of thought there'd be like a bit more emotional lingering on that, but it kind of I mean yeah, maybe it's better that
Mm-hmm.
it's there and they didn't linger. I know I'm literally like this whole conversation is going to be me contradicting myself, so be prepared for that. But yeah, but yeah, I also like that there's an indirect Alfred callback
Mm-hmm.
when we basically get a tour of Wayne Manor.
Yeah.
And it's all these rooms we know and we've seen before just from a different angle, and that I love.
Yeah.
And I loved especially when we went through that little kitchen area where he and Vicky had dinner with Alfred after they realized the table was too big.
See,
That
you could have. See, another way that this could have been done too was having Bruce walk through the house, reliving these things by audio. Like he
yeah,
looks at the stairs and he remembers like Vicky laughing as she's tripping up the stairs. He walks into the dining room, sees the long table,
you
and
you
it
may
replays her saying, "Do you like it in here?" or something like that. And he just kind of smiles to himself.
I'd say you wouldn't even need audio for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I was saying when we kind of get a tour, our memories are doing that for us.
That's true.
And that's how I was saying, like, seeing that little kitchen area is kind of an indirect Alfred callback because that's like a really warm Alfred scene. That's like a good Alfred memory. And just them walking through that room makes us think of that.
Yeah, I love that we got the room with that Vicky and Knox walked through.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw that room, I was like, that warmed my heart. When I saw that room, I was like, oh man, I haven't seen that room.
And it makes sense somebody as young as 18-year-old Barry would go through that room and say, look at all this cool shit.
Yeah,
Like it didn't feel forced or anything.
yeah.
But now that we're on all this Keaton talk and walking through Wayne Manor, um I have to
Okay, so I have to ask you something. I'm gonna ask you if you want to trade a scene for a callback, or if you think the callback's too on the nose. Instead of having the fight scene in the kitchen, which I know you had issues with,
yes.
but what if Keaton's introduction was Barry looking at that same statue and saying, like, holy shit, where did this come from? And he comes in saying it's Japanese.
I'm going to explain why I would have much preferred that.
Okay.
Okay, so, and it's basically what I told you before we started.
Mhm.
Um, I love that because when you look at Gotham and Batman and everything like that since the Burton movies, everything has been, maybe besides Matt Reeves' movie, but even so, um, everything in Gotham now outside of Tim Burton feels so sleek and modern.
Mhm.
And as we've gone on in a more grounded and real world. So I love watching the berries of this sleek world walking into Burton's world. And I love that young Barry says, when he sees Wayne Manor, he says, "Are we in hell?"
Mhm.
Which is the perfect reaction to going from their world into Tim Burton's world.
Mhm.
So then we get the tour of Wayne Manor, and it's like, I love that we're going into the Burton feel now, the Burton atmosphere. And it's like, it actually feels like, it makes the audience feel like we've gone into another world, which is the whole concept. It's not like a different movie set, it's a different world.
Mhm. It's even shot darker.
Yeah. And then Keaton's Bruce shows up, and all of that feeling disappeared, which you would think would be the opposite of what should happen here.
Mhm.
You would think Keaton showing up would be the final yes of being in Burton's world. And then, and I get that the point of the fight scene is to show that Keaton's Bruce can still fight. With that said, when we see Keaton's Batman fight in his own movies, and obviously this has a lot to do with the suit. Obviously, he's not in the suit in the kitchen, so it makes sense he could move a little more. I get it. But still, the fighting that we've seen Keaton do up to this point feels very grounded.
Mhm.
And this whole practically dancing on the kitchen table thing threw me immediately. And the whole, I was praying when he was like, when he had the long hair, I was praying that it wasn't him. I was like, I don't know who this is, but I really hope we're not about to reveal that it's Keaton. I really hope we're not. Because that would mean we're doing the age old mentor thing, the thing we just went through with Luke Skywalker and pissed everybody off. He's going to be a hermit. He's going to have the long hair and the beard. He's going to initially say no. Then he's going to say yes. Then he's going to do some badass shit that we came here to see. Then he's going to unceremoniously die. And they hit every single beat of that. And that really bummed me out. um, and I don't know why he's the one that's the time travel. We're getting the same time travel speech we get in every single fucking movie that always says they're doing something different. It's like, no, this isn't the time travel you think you know, and all of that. I don't know why we're getting that speech again. I don't know why Keaton's Bruce Wayne is the one giving it to us. I don't know why we didn't have the. I know this comes back to the whole it's Barry's movie thing. When he does the lunge thing, and you think the guy's going to run away, similar, like we were saying, it feels like a callback to when he did the come here motion to Bob, and Bob dropped the knife and ran away.
Mhm.
And it's like, why we're building up so much that the whole thing about seeing him fight and all that stuff is to show that Keaton's Bruce still has it.
Mhm.
If Keaton's Bruce still has it, why are we robbing him of this moment of scaring this guy away with a lunge? It's because Barry has to have a moment, I guess, because it's Barry's movie.
I think I can satisfy what you want out of that scene and still give Barry his moment. Keaton does the Khmer motion, and before the guy can even react, Barry knocks him out.
Yeah, yeah, there could have been a way to do that, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah, it kind of would have been like remember the scene in was it Batman versus Superman at the beginning where the guys got Lois hostage
Hmm.
and Superman's in front of him and then he just like flies him through the wall and they disappear and Lois is just standing there by herself.
Yeah,
He probably could have done something like that.
yeah.
But yeah.
It would have even still kept the comedy factor.
Yeah. So
But what I'm trying to do with this movie is, yes, there's a lot of things that I would have done differently. But at the same time, I feel like with everything that happened with Ezra Miller and production, I feel lucky that we got a movie at all.
yeah, it's like we were saying, it's actually kind of weird this movie came out.
Because Keaton coming back has already been struck down once. And there wasn't
Yeah.
anything controversial about that. They just killed the project.
Yeah. No, it was the choice was certainly controversial, but nothing controversial caused it. Like
Mhm.
nothing an actor did caused it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird they axed Batgirl for seemingly no reason. And somehow we've seen the Flash.
Yeah. I
It's
didn't think
so
it was ever
weird.
going to come out.
Yeah, I mean, to keep in tone, it feels like we're in a different timeline.
I mean, there is still some good stuff that Keaton does. Like when he talks about how, like, you know, he is the way he is because of what happened to him. That's a good scene.
Yeah, and what he looks like after he cuts his hair is what he should have looked like the whole time.
Hmm.
That that they did the bearded hermit thing again is mind blowing to me, and not in a good way. Like I cannot believe that's the way you took this. But and yeah, I also talked about it might seem fan servicey, but I feel like it's another one of those things that didn't really draw attention to itself. When he jumps out of the plane, and once again the plane makes the signal in the sky against the moon,
Hmm.
because that is in the background.
Hmm.
The foreground is him coming down.
Yeah.
You have to kind of look up and to the left to go, oh shit.
Yeah.
So I love it. That's another way where it's like, yes, do fan service that way. So yeah, him saying I'm Batman and the plane against the moon are perfect moments to me.
And the Joker bag.
Yeah, I think you like the Joker bag more than I do, but
I just like that it
I
was
want
there.
I will say I did go in wanting some kind of reference to one of his previous villains.
Yeah.
And I guess if there was a way to do that, that would be it. What
And I feel like it's very strange that there was no Catwoman.
Yeah, you know what I thought? A thought that went through my head was because I didn't know I had avoided stuff so much. I didn't know the concept of the movie when I went in.
Hmm.
So when I heard that Keaton and Affleck were in it, I was kind of under the assumption that Keaton and Affleck were going to meet in this movie.
Yeah.
And I would thought it would have been an interesting conversation to have by this point in the story, the each of their individual Jokers killed somebody close to them. Where Affleck's or Jared Leto has already killed Robin in this universe,
Hmm.
and Keaton could say, yeah, oh, in this universe he killed my parents.
Yeah.
And it's like I would have liked to have seen that conversation. It kind of would have been like when Thor's talking about his past. Thor and Quill are talking about their past traumas in Infinity War.
Yeah.
I know DC fans hate it when you compare Marvel and all that, but yeah, I would have actually liked a meeting between Keaton and Affleck. I don't know how you would have done it, but like I said, that's kind of what I thought, not knowing anything about the movie going in, but knowing they were both in it. I kind of
I
thought
think
would
I
happen.
think you could have been, and I'm going to make the comparison too. I would kind of like to have seen if they were going to meet like that, kind of like how three Spider-Mans and No Way Home got together and formed a plan. I would love to watch those two strategize.
Man, we're gonna make ourselves cry building up this movie that doesn't exist.
That's what we need to do. We need to separate what we wanted to see versus what we got because we did get some
Yeah,
good things.
yeah,
Like I know you hate that Keaton died, but honestly, I like the idea of him just crashing the plane in and just going out with it. Like, fuck it.
It
I'm not
could
going to
have
make it anyway. This guy's not going to make it.
it could have been done more climatically, even though they brought him back anyway for a minute.
Hmm.
But one of those deaths could have been more climatic. It's weird to me that they were both anticlimactic,
Hmm.
and it's yeah,
I just think it's funny that anytime he gets in a vehicle that fly, a ski boat, a plane, it's always bad. This is why he should have drove the car. If he'd have drove the car, he'd have lived.
yep.
He
That's the
drove the
first
car.
argument for the car. Like that's the number one argument for the car.
Yeah. The one bad thing that happened in the car was the penguin got control of it, and then he turned it into a penis to drive between two walls and drove off.
Yeah, because it's
I'm still glad that I got Keaton back in the suit because the
yeah,
stuff for him that does work works very well.
yeah. Yeah, there's cases where it's like there's so much here that's going to leave us wishing for more and for stuff that doesn't exist and won't exist. But
You know
like you were saying
what's
before, also where apparently Keaton himself just saw it as, hey, I get to do this one more time. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And one thing I do like that they didn't do is I'm glad they didn't take the Indiana Jones route and make a bunch of jokes about him being old. They referenced once that he was older and moved on.
yeah, and that's another thing I have to give credit for too for the fight scene. I guess is the fact that the fight scene kind of puts that to rest immediately.
Yeah, we're not Kingdom of the Crystal Skulling it here and yucking it up that he's old.
And we were also talking about how even if like I mean obviously that's not Keaton dancing on the fight dancing on the table, but 70-year-old Keaton is still agile. We were talking about when he won his SAG award for Dope Sick, and he ran
Mhm.
back from the bathroom and rolled onto the stage, and it's like that Keaton can still do this.
Yeah.
And
So I
he was
so I
telling me a
think they were
story.
nice moments, but I can see where like everybody's gonna have a difference of opinion on how it could have been done differently. But I am grateful that we at least had.
Yeah, I was also going to go back to he told that story also when he was doing Birdman, and when he got fitted for that Birdman costume, it was his same measurements that it was for the bat suit, and he was really proud of that.
See, also the way I'm looking at it too is now Keaton's last scene as Batman is no longer the the goof where he just his eye makeup's gone. We have a new
Yeah,
final scene of him in the suit.
yeah, and I did notice like I was looking specifically at the eye makeup as he was dying. I was like, oh, it's there, good.
Yeah,
So it says we have 9 minutes left. We could probably wrap this up in 9 minutes, can't we?
probably, probably. We've hit on pretty much everything. What did you think of all the Easter eggs of the different universes with like Adam West being mentioned and the black and white Superman and Christopher Reeve? Like, what was your thought on all that?
Yeah, I don't really have like I mean, we've talked about the CGI.
Mm-hmm.
That aside, I'm fine with all that.
Yeah, I like what it was going for.
Yeah, and it does open up like it's another one of those things where like it opens up more than it can really handle,
Mm-hmm.
but just to kind of have that idea and kind of see those things, I'm not mad at it. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just if
I
the
it, One thing that does surprise me is, correct me if I'm wrong, there were no references to the Nolan trilogy. None.
I don't remember any.
There was none.
Um
And I won't lie, I would have loved if they're gonna do Elseworld stuff like Nicolas Cage and the Giant Spider. I'm sorry, on the floor of Wayne Manor, I know I used the newspaper thing already, but you could have also found a newspaper where it was Billy D. Williams' face half scarred.
yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, we needed some kind of Billy D. Williams reference. Much more so than we needed him in Rise of Skywalker. Not to
And I understand like you don't want to overplay your hand with that, but like I would have loved a Billy D. Williams reference or a Robert Wool reference or either Vicky or Selena. Selena baffles me that she's not mentioned at all, even in passing.
Yeah.
That baffles me.
Especially since we leave her apparently still alive.
Yeah.
But once again, how far do you want to stray from the Flash because it's Barry's movie? And
Like I said, the way I would have drawn attention to it, have him take off the suit, fiddle with the scar where she stabbed him and returns, done. There you go. There it is. And the fact that he kind of messes, like the fact that he's drawing attention to it shows that he still has feelings. Boom, you've accomplished it all.
yeah. Yeah, like the movie seems fine, but when you when you break it down like this and realize what it could have been, there was so much and stuff you could have done in the time too.
Oh,
Like stuff like that, like filling with the scar would have taken no time. It would have
yeah.
been one shot.
Also, we'll go back to your scene that you don't like in the kitchen. But let's say that he just hears a noise and he just comes out of a hallway and he's like, Selena? And then he sees the berries and that's it.
Ooh, that would have put in like there would have been some pain inside him and some
Yeah.
longing. Ooh, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. It'd have been like the one person that he was okay of coming out of isolation.
But once again, it also feels like we're just building a Batman movie. And it's like it's the big you joked about this
We're
before.
we're essentially building Batman No Way Home is what we're doing.
Yeah, because you joked about you and many people joked about this before the movie even came out. It does feel like the Flash got in the way of this of a great Batman movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, as far as going back to Flash stuff before we end, I guess another thing I was going to mention was that we've never seen Barry's backstory in this universe. We know it, but we haven't like seen it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was a nice, unconventional way to give Barry's backstory by making he's trying to make younger Barry relive his backstory.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a fun way to do the origins because obviously the whole thing about superhero origin stories is how we've seen them over and over and over again, and there's not really any more fresh ways to do them. I thought that was a nice kind of unconventional take to have him forced to relive it through somebody
Yeah.
else.
But yeah, so overall, I think the movie does have good things, and I don't think it's great as a whole, but I think it's good, and there are aspects of it I like. I mean, I'll watch it again. Um, but yeah, I feel like there could have been more to it, but at the same time, like I said, I feel like it's a miracle we got anything at all.
Yeah.
And the CGI doesn't look great, but I appreciate what they were going for with it.
Yeah.
Like the Chronosphere visuals are cool. They just look fake as hell.
They look like they're in an animated movie.
Yeah, but they are cool, especially when he relives the guy. Be like, was that fast enough for you? Fuck
Yeah,
that guy.
yeah, and so and I feel like the comedy wasn't bad either. Like when he tried to clean up the house for Kiersey Clemens, and then it all comes tumbling down. And when he goes to the other apartment for beer, and when he opens it, it like fizzes
Yeah,
everywhere.
the comedy aspect, the comedy for the most part is pretty good. It's a funny movie.
Yeah, there's just so much that could have been.
I even appreciate some of younger Barry's reactions to things when he finds out they're going to happen.
Yeah,
Like that's how I would expect an 18-year-old to happen that's been told all this.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll wrap it up overall. I think it's a fine movie. I think it could have been better, but I think it also could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. And thanks to Hollywood's obsession with vomit scenes, I missed most of the first Batman action scene, which I'm really bitter about. But
Uh,
I kept waiting for it the whole movie too. I was like, sooner or later, young Barry's gonna do it, but then it's like, oh no, he's built for that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else?
No, I think we're good, and I think we're running low on time.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes. So, I guess we'll end it here. I don't know what the next thing is, but we do have a movie club on our channel coming in a week or so. And that'll be Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Clooney.
Hmm.
And and then we'll go from there. And you've got your channel stuff.
Yeah, we'll be back this week. Then Forbidden Door will be on Sunday. We'll touch on Collision, what happened with CM Punk, and well, as much as Susan will tolerate, what happened with CM Punk. Uh, but we'll get there.
All right. And then yeah, we'll see what else happens. So until then, is that it?
That's it.
All right.
All right.